Divine rise, blessed be to your day. On this day of expansion, on this day of expansion, on this day of seeking, on this day of growth, in this day of the best day of your life, in order for you to grow, to rise, to become everything that you fucking desire. Before we get into class on Friday, with that red tape, the emotional red tape or the red tape revolver, we don't get into that on Friday. But before we get into that, all this week, we've been getting into the aspects of your emotions, understanding your plans, understanding your patterns, filling emotional voids, your emotional credit score. That's we've been getting deep into that. Last night, God Hour show, we got into the trauma language, grand rising. Today, before this is a little pregame, we do a pregame day before. Before we get into the redlining revolving, or the red tape revolver, we're gonna get into on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube channel in class. I wanted to get into cancel, counsel, and closure. I wanted to get into cancel, counsel, and closure. One big thing that I noticed for myself earlier on in my work, earlier on in a lot of people's work, in our growth, in our patterns, and we're assessing ourselves, we coming into this growth, is the quickness that we will go through to cancel our lessons just to seek counsel for a false sense of closure, for that false sense of closure. A lot of times we go into our spaces and due to the traumatic event, due to the traumatic experience, due to the trauma language, the body language, not receiving what we believe we're entitled to based on what we went through, we are quick to cancel and only seek counsel to get this false sense of closure to remain right. One of the biggest things when it comes into doing your work, one of the biggest things when it comes into doing this work is you're stepping out of your comfort zone. One of the biggest things when it comes into doing this shadow work, doing this internal work, is stepping out of your comfort zone. We're so quick to react. I'm live right now because today, instead of me going to the gym, I went to the park, and now I went to go by my grandmother's gravesite. Even though I talk to my grandmother every single day, though I talk to my grandmother every single day, to go stand in front of her gravesite for like the first time, that was like a whole different vibe for me. So it made me go into this aspects of counsel, cancel, peace. It made me go into this thought process of cancel, counsel, closure. A lot of times we're going into these spaces with ourselves. One thing that I noticed about myself was everything is a lesson. Everything's a lesson. If I don't embrace that lesson, or I'm not open to it based on the condition or the learned behaviors, I'm only going to keep getting the same exact shit. It doesn't matter what I do, what plan I put into motion, what thought I have into motion, it's always going to lead to the same exact thing. It's time to, especially right now, in this aspect of expansion and abundance, those are hand in hand. If I'm not expanding, then how do I become abundant? So now I got to assess, what do I keep canceling? What do I keep avoiding? Everything from a relationship, okay, it's cool that you can define what an example, what a narcissist is, what a vampire is, what a succubus is, what an incubus is. It's nice that we can define. Means you right on time. Sitting in that space with ourselves of our comfort, based on what we've been through, based on what we've, because a lot of times it's the fear of being wrong. It's the fear of trying to remain right. Remember, we're getting into the aspects, your comfort zone now, when you coming into yourself, I had to start understanding that my comfort zone was based on reaction. That's all my comfort zone was. If I could react, if I could react and say I'm anxious, I'm having anxiety, I'm overwhelmed, I'm feeling all these emotions. Remember, your triggers force you to be emotionally present. That's what the trigger hits. It's forcing us to be emotionally present. It's letting you know that you had an idea based on emotional relevance. So a lot of times when we sitting there canceling ourselves, there's no, we gotta understand, that fear of that mistake is based on what am I learning? If I'm open, I used to have a big fear of for example, I had a fear of public speaking. Had a big fear of public speaking. You can't tell that now. But in my beginnings, I had a fear of public speaking. I wanted to stay in my comfort zone. I wanted to talk to a few people. I would only say to a few people. I didn't want to be boisterous. I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I didn't want to hurt nobody's feelings. I still wanted to be accepted. So my comfort zone was based on reaction. So if you've been following my lives for a while now, if you go back to my old lives from the old channels and the old things I was doing, a lot of the times when I was in those spaces, when I would get a message on Messenger, or somebody would leave a comment, or somebody would say something that was in disagreement with what I was saying, I felt the need to shoot. I felt the need to be like, yo, you can't come at me that way. I felt this need to defend myself. I felt this need to defend myself. I felt this need to react. And it kept me in my comfort zone instead of learning, because I had to understand that in this space with yourself, I was quick to cancel. I was quick, for a long time. I remember when I was doing lives 2 years ago. When I was doing lives, building my content, building the base, I remember every once in a while when I was talking about something in a spiritual sense, some motherfucker would come through, somebody would come through and they'll drop a Bible quote under my shit, or a Bible verse chapter and everything under my shit. And the first thing I would do is I go in there and block it, I delete it, I block it, I delete it. I block it, delete it. I wouldn't give myself a chance to argue, or I ignore it. Then other people would come in there and try to say some shit. But I didn't realize that I'm creating a space. Everything coming into my space is based on my comfort zone. So naturally, everything that's coming into my space, it's not to make me react to stay in comfort. It's forcing me to step out of my comfort zone. When we think about the canceling, you're basically redlining, because of your trauma, the traumatic experiences in our lives, the mistakes in our lives. Think about it like this. We study the law of attraction. You looking at the law of attraction. Thought creates your matter, creates a space. So if I'm redlining myself in the fear of making a mistake, the fear of doing it wrong, the fear of going too far, whatever fear is underlined, that red lines, and it brings everything into my space based on that. It keeps me in that space. It keeps me in that zone. It keeps me looking for things to keep me inside of that pattern every single time, instead of me really knowing what I need to do next. We always talk about, I need a team. Yeah, you need a team. But what is in your team? I always go into this when I'm talking about your contact list. You need a team. I know that with the millionaire mindset, for example, I needed a team. What was in my team? I had to go look at these results. I had to create the new codes for myself. Everything that you're doing is creating that new code for yourself. Understanding where you're at, allowing yourself to be humble and get knocked down to sit down and see what you need. I knew a lot of times for myself where I was so quick to cancel. That's when I should have been seeking counsel. So then that brought me into the aspects of really understanding that I am my ancestors. So I needed to seek counsel instead of me trying to seek closure on a false sense of, yeah, I was right. It wasn't about me being right. It was about me. If I'm always trying to be right inside of a space, if I'm afraid to be wrong, if I'm afraid to fall, then how can I ever rise? How can I ever put myself in a position to do more, to expand, go into that expansion? I'll get comfortable in the red line. I'll get comfortable in the red tape that I keep putting around myself. But as long as I'm in my comfort zone, my inherent need to be fed. Because you got to feed that light. Your comfort zone is your light. You need to keep feeding that light. What do you feed that light with? Your addictions, whatever your addiction may be. The addiction is, you can say that I'm not sitting here drinking every day or smoking my life away. But if you're around people that are in that aptitude with themselves, like they're drinking their problems away, smoking their problems away, fucking their problems away, running their problems away, you got to really look at yourself and be like, why am I in this space with them? What am I addicted to? What is my underlying emotion with addiction? Instead of me looking at it based on a reaction, I ain't nothing like them. I ain't nothing like them. I work every day. I do this every day. It might be your job. That might be your addiction. You need that counterbalance. You need that antagonist so you can remain in that positive sense. Your job made you the protagonist because you're working every day versus the motherfuckers that are not working every day. So you need the motherfuckers around you that are working, not working every day, so you have an example of what it looks like not to work. That's how that came into your space. The underlying, the emotional aspect, the traumatic language, the avoidance, the neglect. They're neglecting the work to expand, and you're neglecting to sit down to expand. That's the balance. Remember, everything down here is always in balance. It has to remain in balance or it can't exist. So when you're looking at your space and you're looking at shit that's happening, you got to look at it like this. You can't get until you give. So what are you not giving? What are you not giving away? What in your plan, when you're thinking about your plans in your life, what are you not removing from your space? What are you still holding on to? What emotional void are you still trying to fill? You keep giving yourself this little bitty box to look through. The little mailbox, black and white. You keep looking through that and you're like, you're still living in the time where it hurt the most. So you can now look in your current space and be like, I ain't hurt no more. So you smiling at everybody and then you blow up every time. Think about it like this. When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're depressed, whenever you're in that fear-based narrative of emotion, the lower levels or the lower frequencies, that shit don't come from nowhere. That is a buildup. So whatever comes into your space that pops a hole into that in your comfort zone to force you to react, that's what it's needed. You can't stay. I couldn't stay in my comfort zone because I use an example. Yesterday I watched I talked about it last night, the show. I watched the video earlier in the week, and my man, he was talking about the aspects of creating your content and creating and learning yourself, creating your content based on the freebies or the balance of your lives and your content, providing that service, providing those keys. And I remember he was like, after a while, once you master and you see your niche and you see what you need to tap into, the issues that need to be put in, that's when you now can create your service. That's when you create your service. That's when you can create that monetization. But if you're worried about the money in the forefront, then of course everything you're going to do is naturally going to fill a void. I talk about this all the time when I'm talking about when you're not bringing your shadow to the present. Everything you're doing in this case based on the fear, based on the mistake, based on whatever it is, guess what you're doing in this current state? You're always going to maintain the necessity of the basics of your survival, your suppression, your oppression, whatever it is. You're always going to create a crutch right here to maintain the anchor between your shadow and you come into this point right here. You're always going to create that anchor point. So now everything that you do is to feed that shadow. Everything that you do is to prove to your mom that you weren't a mistake. Everything that you're doing is to prove to your grandfather that he shouldn't have had that second family. But now in your current state, the only way that can exist is you in relationships trying to take niggas away from, you trying to take shorty away from her family, or you trying to take the first round seat in front of old boy's family, and you just keep repeating the cycle, that curse that generate, you are literally self-gentrification. You're literally in a state of self-gentrification. Every time that you accept that, yo, this is the reason that I'm struggling, and you create that point, that's what you got to live with. That's what you got to live with. So when the lesson gets too hard, of course, I'm going to cancel it. I'm going to go seek counsel to make myself right. I knew I was right. The biggest thing that I had to learn was it's not about being right. It's not about being wrong. It's not about winning. It's not about losing. All of that shit, it was based in morals. Because I'll win based on morals, and then I'll lose based on my morals. I'll be right based in my morals, and I'll be wrong based in my morals. That older sense of myself in an older moral compass. Based in that compass is magnetized by my traumas. Remember, the magnet aspect, the recessive aspect, or the feminine aspect, that's what's keeping me in that sense of what I know of myself. So I'm magnetized to this idea of what love is. I'm magnetized to what I know what love isn't, but until I understand what love, until I work on what love is within myself, the relationship with myself, I'm never going to get it. I'm always going to be sitting in a position attracting things that are meant to be my lessons. But based on those old conditions, based on those old terms, based on my emotional credit score, based on me trying to stay emotionally relevant instead of becoming emotionally present with myself, allowing myself to really be vulnerable with myself, now I can't create the team. The millionaire mindset, the LLC mentality, it's about creating your team. It's about creating that foundation, creating that structure, creating your team. You already created a team based on your traumas. Your trauma gave you a whole team. It's like being signed to a contract. That's what your soul contract is. It's like being signed to this $1 million contract. You got a $250 million advance. But now you gotta live within the means of that contract or those traumas. So you don't get to seek your counsel. The only counsel that you can get is based on what you can afford into that. The counsel that they'll give you, or the counsel you gave yourself. They're all got their own avoidance issues. They ain't dealing with the avoidance issues. They're not dealing with neglect. So every time you have a conversation with them, it's a whole hour and a half of quantity, and the quality was in 15 minutes. I remember becoming more and more efficient with myself to where I was having 8-hour conversations, to my conversations turned to 30-minute conversations with certain people, to my conversations turned to 10-minute conversations, to a 30-second text message. I can get more information from a 30-second and equivalent text message that I can get from sitting in somewhere for an hour, sitting somewhere for 3 hours, absorbing all of that shit, then having to feed it. It's all about your quality. What do you want in your life? It's all about me sitting in a space with myself and sitting down and being like, you know what? I don't know everything. I don't know everything that I think I needed to know. I don't have all the answers. All these answers is based on my old aspects of myself. It's based on me afraid to move forward. It's based on me having this desperation narrative with myself. It's based on me staying within this, I'm trying to make everybody happy. I posted a video last week. If everybody's around you happy, everybody's about to be broke. If I'm trying to keep everybody comfortably happy and keep everybody in a nice, everybody's good, we all gonna go eat, how will I ever grow if I don't have that isolation? Earlier on in my lectures, I always talked about the need for separation. You need separation before you unify to anything. It's all a part of your process in your plan. You want to keep talking about unity, but you separated. That's the external reflection. You want to talk about unity in your space and unity with your people, but you still separated from your own soul. You ain't doing your internal work. So how can you create a plan? All you'll ever be able to do is create a pattern based on the emotion. That's what we see a lot of times when it comes to people wanting to, I want to make a plan. We need to do this. We need to do this. How have you simplified that formula in yourself? What code, how have you coded your plan to create the natural parameters that when anything comes into your space, you have a go-to for it? I got a go-to for multiple aspects in my space, what I need to do. Some of the times I ain't even looking for it anymore. It just naturally comes to me. That's what you're coming into. That's efficiency. That's the quality. When you got people around you that are reflective of your traumatic experiences, reflective of your addiction, reflective of your habits, your patterns, and your behaviors, of course the shit look normal. Of course you stay in struggle. Of course you're going to stay in the strife. Of course you're going to stay in an oppressed manner. Of course you're going to feel the need to, I got to make sure my family good. But meanwhile, what is your family doing in their own narratives? That's the uncomfortable conversation. You're sitting there putting yourself in there day in and day out, putting yourself in positions, emotionally investing into that position because you're thinking that if I do this for my mother, then one day she's going to love me the way that I needed her to love me. If I do this for my father, then one day he's going to admit what he did to me and he's going to love me. My uncle, my aunts, my cousins, one day they're going to look at me and they're going to admit to me as long as I keep putting in this time. But if I put more time into the external and never putting it into myself, I'm always going to be tired. I'm always going to be in a sense of being tired. I'm never going to be fulfilled. I'm always going to stay in the same narrative. And then I'm going to go year after year after year after year, afraid to do things that I need to take care of. Because I'm going to have everything around me that's going to be my distraction. I'm going to keep holding on to this image I got in my mind, that childlike imprint. But I'm never assessing how that image became prominent in my mind. So no matter what I do, no matter what I attract, it got to be attracted to what you are in your mind. So if I got that shit that I have not dealt with, I'm always going to attract based on to what's on my mind. So I'm never going to allow the opening of my heart. I'm going to falsify and get closure every time. Every relationship that you're getting in. No problem. Much gratitude. You want to expand. But that thing that we talked about it last night. We talked about that survival mode. When you're expanding in survival mode, that inherent need to fill emotional voids becomes the most prevalent part in your life. So everything that comes into your space that can be meant to be the lesson, the thing that can take you to the next level, you're going to be sitting there like, but I'm going to keep this here. That may not be what it needs to be there. It might be that might have been your best move. That's why it's going the way that it's going. It's forcing you to have that. It's one thing to talk at something. It's one thing to speak about something, but I have to comprehend it. The only way I can have comprehension is being intimate with my senses. I talked about that yesterday with that body language. You sitting in spaces and you wondering why somebody can stand there, sitting there in comfort, sitting there just like this, in a comfortable position, listening to you. You ain't used to it. So you looking at them and you mad when you think that they're off-putting you. You think that they're off-putting. You think that they ain't thinking about your emotions. But you've never had nobody listen to you before. You've never had nobody try to comprehend you before. You've never learned that lesson. That's what they're teaching you. That's how you expand. Remember, you've always been abundant, but you got to look at what you're abundant in your lower levels of yourself. You've always been wealthy, but you just overdrawn. You have to assess them overdrawn emotional accounts that are based in fear. You've always been in the sense of prosperity. Look around you. What are you prosperous in? Trauma, drama, conflicts, all the tools you need in order to grow. You got every tool and everything you need around you to grow. What are you afraid to expand into? What about you are you afraid to explore? What are you afraid to bring to the surface? What are you afraid to talk about? Seek that counsel for that, instead of seeking counsel to remain right. Stop canceling your lessons. The hardest thing in a lot of my shit, my earlier work for myself, I was always canceling the lesson. The moment that it got too deep, the moment that it got too emotional, I was like, why the fuck I keep getting these streams of niggas? Why I keep getting these streams of niggas in their emotions? Because I didn't understand my emotions. Why I keep getting overly emotionally people in my life? Because I was detached from my emotions. I wasn't doing the internal work that I needed to do. Why I got people coming at me telling me that I can't get something or talking about my emotional voids? Why I always get these things in my, why does this keep attracting to me? I gotta look at my red line. I gotta look at that red tape. You sitting here running, basically, and what we're gonna get into Friday, what we're getting into tomorrow night is that red tape revolver. A lot of times you going into your space when you're doing your healing work, doing your internal work, and you get to a point of complacency. Remember, in the dark, you gotta be alert. You gotta be aware. When you were in your trauma, you didn't have to be aware. You didn't have to be aware. Your awareness was like 0 to like 5. You always had your awareness was almost at like a 5. But when you become self-aware, your self-aware is in the darkness. Your self-awareness is in the darkness. That's your perspective. That's your potential. That's your purpose. Stepping out of your comfort zone is only going to be found in that darkness. You maintaining this emotional red tape for yourself. You keeping this emotional red tape going for yourself. And you feel safe behind the old codes and the old codes of conduct of how you're conducting yourself, because you keep getting I keep getting a little bit of stuff from this. I get my needs met because you were used to it. That survival complex, that you looking back at how your grandmother lived, how you lived in past lives, past life cycles for yourself. All of that's coming to your forefront. Do you want it to stop, or do you want it to continue? Do you want to continue being comfortable, or do you really want to? I'm a god of destruction. A long time before I came to this point, I had to accept that I was a god of destruction. I had to I was the god of decomposition. I had to accept those aspects because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's in my purpose. The old paradigm of yourself no longer can be maintained. That's what you're seeing outside of yourself. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, y'all get ready for class. Y'all come into class. Y'all come to class. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. G.O.D Alchemist, the YouTube channel, Friday night lectures. We don't get into this red line. We don't get into this red line revolver. You keep revolving back to your old pattern because you're still stuck on something in your plan, something in your space. It's based on your pattern. It's based on your old pattern. Based on a void. something that you never had before. It's time to start giving it to yourself. It's time to start learning how to give it to yourself. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everything from me, shadow work consultation, mini readings, all my readings are mini consultations. Setting up that consultation, sitting down, and so we can like give you that space so you can let it out. Learning your aspect, aptitude of patience, learning your shadows, bringing them to the present in that now. Hit me up in the inbox. Go ahead and schedule that. Go ahead and get that scheduled. I desire you to be the fucking best. You're welcome. Much gratitude. Soon as you have a thought, it's already in the past. Soon as you have a thought, it's already in the past. So there's nothing wrong with having a thought. It's time to assess what it's feeding in your past. Why does that thought keep coming up? Your mind is only going to repeat what the heart needs you to deal with. It's time to open up that path. It's time to step forward. I can't make you ready. Nobody can make you ready. Except for you. But yeah. On this day, it's time to expand. What you're about to expand into. I love you. We love us. Appreciate y'all for stopping through. Just wanted to drop that out a little bit. I got on the blue shirt, so my throat chakra is mad active. I want you to be the fucking best. I love you. We love us. Ashe.